My name's George Otero, and I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Wow, beautiful morning, good day. Did you enjoy finding out where people are from? Ann and I are working together on this presentation, and I found that's kind of changed the way I do things. How many of you have the opportunity to kind of do your work with someone else? Yeah, wow, that's nice. I recently was at a conference and talked to somebody who had to supervise parent engagement, but they were the only one in the office. And it gets a little lonely. So I love to hear that. How many of you were born in the same place you grew up? I found 2 in the group I interviewed. Born in the same place you grew up. That's me and so on. That's an interesting story. How many of you are the oldest in your family? The oldest child, not the oldest person. No, you'll get on one of those streaming services for that story, that's for sure. Okay, I saw the hands. Where are they again? The parent engaged, family-facing professionals, oldest in the family. How many of you are the youngest? Oh, okay, Nushette, I remember that. And happy youngest, huh? Yeah, there are all these statements you could explore with people, because often the youngest people, especially depending on how many are in the middle, they get away with murder, don't they, you oldest ones? Absolutely. They're so happy to say, my parents just gave up after about 4 of you. Well, that's the kind of tone and feeling. There's a few others we do with that. And the whole approach we're talking about is an ongoing conversation of who we are, what's worth learning, and how we learn that together. And that's where the whole story is. And everybody is more than essential to it. Especially as Ann and I have talked, the students themselves. Because the kids know, right? They're probably the biggest. When you're looking at connection, they're connected. So it's just a kind of magnificent sense when you're in the family-facing field. I learned that name from Judy and all of you. Family-facing professionals. I think there should be t-shirts for all of you. Family-facing professionals. Like, that'd scare away some folks, wouldn't it? Wow. But it is true. And so with the goals you have and what you're doing and what we've had an opportunity to do, we want to just go through with you, Ann and I today, is that sense of relational leadership. What kind of leadership does it take as a family-facing professional? And it takes relational leadership. And that is the big how. Because we're all aware of it, but living it, doing it, sharing it with others is part of the work. And when you're living relationally, everybody tends to want to join you. My favorite leadership quote is, if you're being run out of town, get in front, make it a parade. Yeah, this group feels stuff here, I can tell. Yeah, oh yeah. So, that sense of what we're doing is quite important. So, come on up, Ann, because I think I'm just doing this part. Are you happy to? For some reason, I want Ann by my side all the time. You'll find if you ever meet Ann, you'll want her by your side too. Judy already gave a sense of the power in a short note about the Relational Leadership Institute and Retreat. And and we're going to do another one. Not the whole institute, but Santa Fe worked so well, and Connecticut made it even better. And so in February, at the end of February, if all of this makes sense and you're needing a break, end of February, Santa Fe, 4 days. Best prices at it. You know, it's kind of like a resort area down there a bit. But we have the best hotel and food and people to share with you, and meeting people at this institute. There'll be people from Texas and Colorado and Michigan and maybe Kentucky, and we don't know yet. Maybe some friends Alaska we met, who all are family facing, and they want to just get the relationship first approach down experientially. And it's a win-win. You can't miss it, as we know with Ann. So you all, the people in the room who came back, pioneered that. And Betsy, I haven't seen Betsy yet. Well, we hope to see her, because when we were talking and planning, she said, well, we need to have this institute. And I mentioned where I lived, and she said, and that's where we're going to have it. Do you all know Betsy from? Well, you know I've said that's all you need to know. But, you know, that's the kind of a spirit and approach. And that's led to things that really make a difference. So we do want to invite you to that. We can send you, I'll have to get your email or something, but February, last 5 days in February, we're on. Love to have you. Okay, my wife told me I should start where I want to end. And so that was the invitation there. Now I'm done. Don't tell my daughter, though. She's helped me for years, and and I left the brochure at the hotel. Is that ever, how many of you have left the brochure? All right. So we would like you in this start. We always do what you're doing. Coffee, people talking, maybe a little chat, some prizes. We have more. As what we call in the work of putting the relationship first, a well-being welcome. So we often do welcomings, but as a relational leader, we want to make sure they're stimulating people's well-being. Because well-being isn't an outcome, it's a state. Yeah? You can already hear the difference, can't you? If you're working it, then it's a task, and we'll look at that. Well-being isn't a task, it's just your birthright. Right? One of my favorite from the Zen or other ones is the statement of, we're all born perfect, we could all just use a little improvement. So in all that sense, the well-being welcome we have for you to do, and there are hundreds of them. The one you started with was one. How many just felt better after talking to people about where they were raised? Yeah, a few of them? Okay, the others will work on it. Okay, here we go. So, well-being welcome. Always we're asking these 3 questions in the well-being. Who am I? What's worth learning, and how do we learn it together? So we're always the subject, not the object. We're always the learner as well as the leader. And sometimes what we're all learning is we just have to break through those roles of parent, student, family. You know, one workshop we did, we gave to the parents who came a t-shirt. Literally, they did this in Australia where I worked. It said, I am not the parent this morning. I'm just Sally. Give me a break. You can feel that. So when we are learning who we are and how we can be available to each other, that stimulates well-being. And then work happens, life happens, smiles happen. We generate an energy that can't be denied. It's the relationship that makes all learning possible. So in this one, a fun one, Judy put this together. There are millions of them. We'll go through many in the future together. You just need to say to people, very interesting, even though you've said it before, just state your name, state your first job. You can remember back there. I can, so I'm sure you could. It was selling donuts, which results in my mantra. You know how they have little cards and you can get them out of gratitude of little sayings you carry around? It's a kind of mantra. Well, they have these deck of cards, and mine is, life is short, eat more donuts. Because when I was young, I sold donuts in a basket. They were called spud nuts then because they were potato donuts. You want no one that enough. So you share your name, your first job, and your favorite color. That's all you have to do is name, first job, favorite color at your table. You have 1 minute and 22 seconds. Go. So this next part on the well-being welcome is not doing the sharing, but sharing the doing of it. So if you're going to activate well-being, it's got to have the sharing of the doing of being well. I don't know, that's almost like a little mantra because we ask people to do something. That often results in a check-in. We're going to do something before. But when you share what you did, it deepens it. And it activates the well-being even stronger. So it's kind of a interesting, what I've learned, and some people I really admire talking about relational leadership. They say it's like a rhythm. It has more of a rhythm. Do you feel like some days it's just not going to happen? I think you need new signs for your door. Not today, it ain't going to happen. So, if you try to force it, it almost insults everybody, including yourself. So, anyone at one table, someone's earliest job you heard that surprised you liked, and you just want the whole group to know. You don't have to give their name, just name the job if you like. Build-A-Bear Workshop. Okay. Where they're trying to get all these. Did you hear that? Build-A-Bear. The Build-A-Bear Workshop. Somebody else, quickly. Can you scream that out?
Haldor.
Haldor.
Boy, that got a reaction here in Connecticut. Oh, really? Well, okay, Haldor. Further conversation. That's why you start with the Friday cafe in the morning and you move right into lunch, and then probably dinner follows later. You know that's probably how most of you met your partners of some kind. Okay. Ongoing rhythmic, not sequential, not check the box, rhythmic. If the rhythm of the well-being isn't there, it doesn't matter how many times you repeat it. You see that with athletes or sport, the rhythm's there. Our best gymnast in the world stopped in the middle of being at the Olympics because the rhythm wasn't there anymore. And she was harming herself if she continued. Okay, millions of examples. So that's where we can live. Everybody lives there. One more job, early job. Someone got one? Just can mention it, came up at your table.
There are 3 at our table that were waitresses.
Okay. So we're having a moment of silence for the women who've had to carry the load forever. But they had on the TV this morning, I finally found the channel. Those TVs in the hotels with those streamings, I could not find one show I was used to watching. I'm getting older, but geez, there was nothing there, but it was impossible to get. But I finally got a local, and they said that you guys are kind of famous for witch trials. And they were mentioning the ones today on Salem. And who carries more than half the earth. No offense to us guys here. Anywhere in the world those sayings are, women carry it. Because they have to, that's their nature. All right, so that well-being welcome and the sense of that, could you just mention your colors? We're going to end with the colors, and we have prizes, because I love to do this when we even have a big group, and you all mention your colors, but if your favorite color is my favorite color, you win the next prizes. Now that's a setup, but here we go. How many of you's favorite color was yellow? Yellows? I heard you right off. 1, 2, 3. Mine is yellow. Say New Mexico, best flag. For the rest of you didn't win. Those 3 all prizes, we've got a prize bag. Take yours. And then I'll show you this is what the most popular favorite colors are. Courtesy of Judy's research. You can Google anything, right? And present it to your group. Greens. Where are the greens of one kind or another? Often quite a few. That's blue. Look, it's fitting the percentages. We're just right in line. Blues. Purple. There's usually a few. Wow. Purple. Strong on purple. Red. There were a number of reds. Dressed in red. Black. It's a great color. Now, let's not get into arguments yet about what's a color and what isn't. Pink. We got 4 yellows. You guys are right in line 3. Orange. A separate one. I like orange too. It's kind of like yellow. No, okay. Brown. We had a brown. We had a new one the first time in a long time. Chocolate brown. Was that yours? Yeah. Chocolate brown. Now that has taste and flavor. Okay, so then white and the rest. Now why we just showed you this and give the prizes is because well-being, which is such the key part of one of our operating principles, we're now going to look at the research behind. We're the luckiest profession in the world if you're family-facing and about families, because the relationship is the only way to go. And we now know that if you just are activating well-being first and always, you're 80% of the way there. And then following these rhythms, because people will take care of each other. And so key is trusting relationships. The question is, do we trust ourselves and others to let go sometimes? Yeah, so this is the fun of this whole approach. It's easy, people love it. The parents would get the same thing and do the how many of yous, and everybody says, I can play this, and I'm ready. All right, so now we're going to look at the second part, but in the introduction, I just wanted to show my favorite slide, which is Ann Anderson and me together. And we met, and I'll let Ann say a little bit about that, but that's when I discovered, which in a relational leadership way, we practice what the South Africans call Ubuntu. I am because of who we are together. I'm only as good a family engagement support person as the well-being of all the people who are in your office and those kids who work with you, and their strength and resilience in spite of the difficulties they face. That feeds you. That makes us who we are. We're not living in isolation. So working with Ann has been transformative for me. And we feel sometimes we've she wrote her text to us coming out today. We hadn't seen each other a while. She just said, it'll be fun. Ann.
Thank you, George. It's always fun with George. As soon as he comes into the room, the party starts. And we don't have a clicker, do we? I have to go over here and...
I can do it for you.
Can you do that for me?
You just give me it and I'll do it.
George and I met so long ago, we can't even remember what year it was, but it was in the last century. So that tells you something right there. And it was some Mott Foundation community school leaders thing in Park City, Utah, I
Park
think.
City, Utah.
And we've managed to stay in touch ever since. He pulled me into some of his work in Australia, and I found my opportunity to pull him into my work with Connecticut. And now it's spreading all over. There's a lot of interest in this relationship first approach. So let's just think about this. Those of you who know me and have heard me at how many of you have heard me at previous Friday cafes? Wow, thank you. And you know that I have a little button in the middle of my back that when it's pushed, I start talking about the research, right? Because I've been tracking it since 1981. And I can tell you that over the years, the research is remarkably consistent. Everyone Wins is my latest book on the research, and I think it was 2 years ago I did a Friday Cafe where some books were handed out and I talked about the findings and the latest findings. It's the 5th one in the series I've done. I'm just, my father-in-law used to say to me, "You're like a dog with a bone." You get me on this research and I'm not letting it go, but it's remarkably consistent. And one of the biggest important stories that emerges out of all of these studies is how important it is to develop relationships. It's the first guiding principle of our Connecticut guiding principles, and it's the first thing we have to do. It's not the only thing we have to do, but it's the first thing. And if we don't do it, nothing else works, because that's how you build trust. So skillfully placing relationships first in everything we do, not just at school, at home, with our friends, at the grocery store, just smiling and getting to know the people around you and spreading, well-being and cheer is just the key, not only to your professional success, but your personal success. So we're going to go down and dig into the roots in the research because, as Judy said, sort of quoting me, that trusting relationships are the soil in which everything else takes root. And if you do that, everything else works much better. So in Everyone Wins, we found, first of all, so what? So what? What difference does it make? Well, it makes a lot of difference. It has a lot of ripple effects. Kids do better in school. They like school more, they feel more comfortable at school when they feel that the people who work in the school know who they are, know and respect their families. They can bond, they're more engaged, they're more motivated, and they feel they can just be themselves, which is so important, isn't it? And as a result of that, teachers are more effective. And they tend to stay in the job longer and have higher morale. How many of your schools have teacher retention problems? Yep. Half of all teachers leave in their profession within the first 5 years. Half. So we have a teacher supply problem, but what we really have is a teacher retention problem. And in schools that work well with families, everybody gets along better because it's a place where everybody wants to be. Why don't we want to create, and I know we do, schools that kids love coming to, that people love working there, where you have fun together, you collaborate, you feel like your colleagues have your back. That's the kind of place we want to create in all our schools, right? And relationships first is the key to that. And then that strengthens our families. When we affirm and welcome our families and listen to them and value the fact that they're experts on their children, their culture, their neighborhoods, and have valuable information for us to reach and motivate our students, it just validates the parents and who they are and what they do. And parents tend, in school settings like that, to use the Family Resource Center if you have one. How many of your schools have some kind of a Family Resource Center? Hey, yeah, great.
They're wonderful places.
And that's terrific. And then that strengthens the family, which of course helps the student immensely. And as a result, when you have a community, a school that is welcoming and affirming and fostering well-being and linking what they're doing to children's learning, because that's what we all care about, our communities become stronger and healthier because our schools are becoming community builders. So when we think about what a school does, it's not just imparting a curriculum to students who march in the door at 8:30 and march back out at 3. It's all about creating people who are going to keep your community lively and vibrant and thriving. Next. And everyone wins, right?
Get your copy soon.
So the overarching themes of this, of all the research is, if you only remember 2 things, it's developing trust, which you do through relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Without a relationship, there's no trust.
Right.
No trust. A marriage doesn't work without trust. This is true for all our relationships. Mm-hmm. And we want to link it to learning because that's what everyone wants. No matter how much we disagree about all kinds of things, nobody doesn't want children to thrive. Everyone wants children to love school, learn what they need to learn, apply it in all sorts of creative ways, and we start there. We start there building trust and focusing on how our children are learning and doing. So back again to the T word. It's all about trust. Traditional family engagement practices, the kind of back to school night where everybody's herded into a room and, you know, the principal gets up and goes yada, 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 and some other people get up and go yada, 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 and then everybody goes, oh, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Does that build trust? Does that build relationships? No. And so we really need to think about what are we doing and how can we infuse relationships in it. And we do this by talking to each other. We can talk to each other in person, that's ideal. But even as we learned during COVID when we had to do a whole lot of Zoom calls, once you've met in person, there's something that sticks with you. And when you see them on Zoom, you still can feel their vibes. You know, you've gotten to know them because you've been in their presence. So we can use, you know, text messaging and all sorts of other things to communicate, but we need to build that personal bond first. And there's a study that was done across the pond in Great Britain called Achievement for All, where they looked at a very ambitious program to advance student learning, and they found that the key thing in all of the components of the program was the structured conversations about learning between parents and teachers that lasted at least an hour, and where they had to get to know each other in that time. And what they did was they shared their knowledge and insight. Parents have a lot of that they can offer teachers, and vice versa, right? And then committing to a child's success. So here's how we're going to work together. This is what we're going to do. This is where the child's struggling. This is the strengths. This is what they love to do. And sharing that and then developing a plan together. And when the schools did that, the whole program worked so well that the children who had special needs of any kind, not just, say, disabilities, but children who were from low-income families, first language not English, foster care, all of those things, those children did so well that they went better than the national average. And the schools where they didn't do this, the children declined. So we know what we need to do. We just have to figure out how to do it. Next. So that is the relationships first approach. And that's what our Relational Leadership Institute and Intensive are all about, is how we do this. Next slide. George, I think you take over at this point.
Well,
Well, I'll do this one. I love this slide. It's George's slide, but I really love it.
Her slide now.
See, we're sort of improv theater this morning. And a lot of what we do in our schools is transactional, isn't it? It's to-do lists. It's come together, okay, there are 3 things we have to do, there are 4 forms we have to fill out. You need to report on this, and we need to get the following 6 things done. Understand? Okay, go. Does that build a relationship? That doesn't even happen in the context of a relationship. So what we want to do is move toward a relational approach. And a relational approach means you're still doing the things that have to be done. There are always going to be tasks. There are always going to be to-do lists. But you're doing them in the context of collaboration and relationship and trust. And it makes all the difference. So we're just shifting from something that's process-driven to something that's people-driven and people-informed. And when we think about what are our staff meetings like? What is the classroom like? How do we greet people when they come in? Do we just give them a form to fill out and tell them to sit down? Or do we say hello and ask them what their favorite color is? And just have these conversations. So that's the key in understanding what we're doing in the big picture, moving from transactional to relational, because that will be transformative. Okay.
You can keep your job and all your programs and everything you've got, but just that shift makes all the difference.
Okay.
And we have just a couple minutes because we're getting our group. It's just fine because I love this and I can do it.
Okay, you've got 5 minutes, George.
See, we're
Actually
operating
then we're going to hear from our relational leaders who went through the institute.
That's right. No, I was going to just come here and listen to all your examples. So, as you hit that, and I don't know, just what you start affirming is the brilliance, wonder, capacity of others. Like I feel like I shine relationally when someone around me is doing what they do best. Think about that now with parent relationships as your family facing. If the parents can come forward as the brilliant people, we heard with parent, teacher, family home visits, when they go, who steps forward? The parents, the family, the kids. Where they're in the school too often in context, they have to step back or comply. So we're not meeting each other. And the juice, what you won't want a retirement, you keep meeting all these amazing people who you live and work with. So we find there are 4 for us in making this shift from the relational to relationship's not a factor. It's the context. That's what we need. And when the relationship is strong, all the tasks get done better if they need to get done, because I'm sure you'd find that there's some tasks that you wonder how they got on your list anyway. Okay, so 3 operating principles. And that's the whole thing we've found. So it's simple to do for anyone. We share this with everyone, the kids, parents, yourselves. This doesn't have to be a trick. It's not a program. You don't need a degree. Okay? Activate well-being first and always. Started to play with that. First and always. At the end, activate well-being again with appreciation. They'll come back. Don't make them sign up for a committee. Okay? We have hundreds of examples of how those meetings work. Ensure that everyone is seen, heard, understood, valued, and then finally, as Ann has told me, and then affirmed. So there's a rhythm to it. If you start out don't you know often we affirm people and they're kind of feeling like that seems a little early here. You know, don't tell me it's all working until we haven't even struggled together. So what is key is that people feel seen, heard, valued, understood, and then we start affirming each other, and bingo, the relationship is thriving. Because people will always want to be in an affirming relationship. And the third operating principle is practice ongoing discovery through continuous conversation. In other words, the conversation never ends. Because that's what humans, that's how we grow. That's the fertilizer of the soil. Ongoing discovery and conversation. So check yourselves as you go back today. If you got a program and you can finish it and there's a point when someone's ending their relationship, you might want to reset that and keep looking at how that relationship keeps growing and moving, and there's more to discover, right? And there's so many ways to do that. One of them is to come to Santa Fe. No. But, you'll see. You'll have to see. You have to ask Bridget. So here we go. So only 2 quick examples, and then we're going to hear how the participants of the cohort, wow, gee, I wish I was born taller. This is just such a lovely place to be. My gosh. Okay, well, it's just a whole different view, isn't it? I'm empathizing with my puppy dog. She's down here, and she's always in touch, but it's from this other angle. All of that you can do. There's a million games and ways to do all of this. People want to play. And that's one of the ones we have in ongoing discovery. So you always activate well-being. You're always working to see that people are seen, heard, valued, understood, and affirmed. And what's your first indicator of whether that's possible? How are you feeling seen, heard, valued? Because if you're not, and it doesn't spread. People get it if you're living it. You see what I mean? They'll come back if they know you're taking care of yourself. So, easy to do. And then ongoing discovery. We have, at the center, for years I worked in a multicultural learning center in Taos, New Mexico. 65,000 people, and we came together, ate, drank, danced, talked, communicated, all the schools and parents together to say, how do we build a world that we all want to live in? All want to live in. So with that case, we found out that humans just naturally learn relationally in 6 ways. And a lot of the people we're talking to in our group just went back and took these natural ways of learning and added them to, you got science of reading one year and you got another reading one. What works? Well, this best example, I'll give you one, nationally in the U.S. is called STAR. If STAR is an acronym that builds reading, what do you think each of the letters stands for? And then I'll move on to our next part. What's S stand for? Sing. Sing. Talk. What's A? Act. And R is the read. They just gave this to parents on one sheet, and if they just found ways to do that with their kids, playing with, their reading went up. So I got stuck on these. We're moving on because ongoing discovery keeps happening, and what we're going to share with you now is what a couple of the folks who came to Santa Fe and participated in the retreat, and we're relational leaders anyway. Any of you who come, you're already a relational leader. We just get better at it. And so they're going to share a bit about these hows and how they've done this not step by step, but every day in their own work and situation. So, Ann?
Maria Simmons is a school board member, school commissioner.
Yes.
They give different terms everywhere in Bristol, and Cynthia Zingler is the Director of Family and Community Engagement and a lot of other things in Vernon. And I had the pleasure of being with them in Santa Fe for 3 days, along with several others of you who are here and even more who weren't able to come today. And so what we are going to call this segment of our Friday Cafe the Experience Showcase. And I'm going to ask them a few questions, and I'm going to go back and forth because my little lavalier mic can catch what they're saying if I sit in the middle. So Cynthia, tell us about what you did the first thing when you got back from our Relational Leadership Intensive in Santa Fe.
So actually for me, the first thing that I did when I got back was share with, I have a very small team. I have 2 coordinators of family engagement and I have an administrative assistant. So my first thing was actually to go back and start sharing with them what we had talked about, and it was really important to me that, you know, it wasn't just learning for me, but how am I bringing this back to the larger group. So I started first with my small team, but then I also lead some other district teams. I lead the district attendance team as well as the district equity and engagement team. So then I started sharing some of my learnings with those groups. So one of the things when I say that I did was I had us look at what our family meetings look like. So when you are having a conversation with a family, is it us talking at, because I've seen plenty of these things, you know, us, like we walk in and, okay, we're gonna tell you what's wrong, we're gonna tell you this is what you need to do, right? So one of my things was to have us take a step back and say, start with the family, listen to the family, ask questions to find out what are the strengths of the child, right? Because we wanna build on the strengths. So, you know, rather than us talking at, having it be that build that relationship, listening to the family first, and then having conversations together about how can we work together, you know. And so I think that was one of my big, you know, things that I started with, is just looking at my learning and saying, okay, what are we doing to build relationships with our families? Because guess what, they're not going to hear a word you have to say if you start with, you know, as we all know, but start with a negative, right? So, you know, your kid isn't here in school, you know, why are they not here? Yeah, and then they shut down, right? So that's just, I'll start with that.
That's wonderful. So you went back and you related all of this that you learned to your team.
Yeah.
And did they get it right away?
I think there's some that naturally get it, and there's others that I'm giving constant reminders to, and really looking at, you know, having those conversations, having conversations with administrators, you know, because they're the ones who oversee, obviously, some of the staff, because I don't have that kind of power, per se, but really thinking about what do we want in our schools, right? And what does it look like? So it is that constant reminder of, it is, without the relationship, we're gonna get nowhere. So thinking about how are we interacting with our families, and it's not just about welcoming. To me, like, welcoming is the first step, but how are we creating that sense of community and that sense of belonging? Because it can look pretty and welcoming, but really what do those interactions actually look like? And that's really what I'm focusing in on, not just the welcoming piece, but really how are we creating that sense of belonging and that sense of community? Are we creating that place that people want to be?
Mm.
You know, when I talk to parents, and I always try to do that when I go out and work with school districts, what they'll tell me when a school is doing this well is that it feels like a second family. it's a place they can go and be affirmed and supported and encouraged. And sometimes maybe their first family wasn't so good at that, but we can be good at it. And it is something that you can learn. Some people are naturals at this, and others just need to learn how to do it. So Maria, what was the first thing you did as a school board member? Your situation is different from Cynthia. You don't have like a team that you work with every single day. So what did you do?
Well, I didn't waste any time.
She never does.
I knew the kind of culture and climate that I was hoping to support when I got back, and that there's a lot of moving parts when you're a school board commissioner. I'm an elected person, and I'm there to serve every member of the Bristol school community, not just employees of a school district, but an entire community, my community. And after wasting no time, I set the intention. I set the intention that I was not going to let anything discourage me, that I was going to be very forward-facing, and I got really vulnerable. And I knew that I wanted to make an attempt to repair a somewhat strained relationship with a school leader. And that's where I got really vulnerable and open. I brought a gift, which I recommend you always do whenever you are looking to have really open, honest conversations, and be willing to be a little bit raw and vulnerable. So I started there, and I'm one of 9 commissioners, and I talked to my chair. I'm the vice chair, but I talked to the chair about what I hoped to do in one of the committees that I chaired, which is the School, Family, and Community Partnerships Committee. And we were in the process of really, we changed the title from Communication and Community Relation to School, Family, Community Partnerships, and really started to look at systems. How do we build systems around what we do? And I started with the committee and really worked where I had a little bit of a locus of control, which was as the chair of the committee. And we'll get into more how I did that and how we activated well-being, and how I think starting in those areas has been foundational.
Thank you, Maria. So, wow. And thank you for the gift. Just seeing those flowers, and is that like an apple?
That is a support tomato.
All right, now that's a new one on me, but yes.
A support tomato, that's good.
You think of what, now, in my family, we always call them tomatoes.
Oh.
And people would tease me about saying it, so I got stubborn. So I still say tomato, but when you think about tomatoes, how much of our food that we eat is enriched by the introduction of, we've got tomato sauce, we've got tomatoes in vegetable dishes and spruce them up in salads, so yeah, I can see that. Thank you. So George mentioned the 3 operating principles: activating well-being, making sure everyone feels seen, heard, understood, valued, and affirmed. The affirm is important because how many times have you been invited to, share your ideas or whatever, and say, oh, that's great, and we really like that, we hear you, but nothing ever happens? I was working with a school in Eastern Connecticut, I'm just forgetting the name of it. It's a high school, and they asked the students, big absentee problem, they asked the students what would make the school a place they wanted to come to. And the first thing the students said was, nobody ever asked us before. But boy, did they tell us. And what the school did was they put up a big bulletin board that said, we heard you. And on one side it was, here's what you told us, and here's what we're doing. And I thought that is a wonderful example of affirmed. Mm-hmm. We listened to you, we heard you, and we're actually changing our behavior as a result. And then the third operating principle is keeping it going. I've worked in schools where I say, well, let's talk to your parents, and they say, we've already done that. And I said, oh, when? Oh, 2 years ago. Constant, continuous communication. So with that little refresher, Cynthia, tell me some of the things that you think are happening that are using those 3 operating principles and putting them into play.
Sure. So it was interesting. I just had this past week, one of my team members was going to a PPT with a family at one of our schools. So she had been kind of that, had been helping to support the family. So they asked her, she's the coordinator of family engagement at the elementary level, to attend the PPT as well. And she said, Cynthia, you would be so proud of me if you had been watching. She said, you know, she goes, so when I went in, she noticed that the parent was sitting out in the chairs, and she could hear everyone chatting in the conference room. How many of you have walked in for meetings like this? I've attended meetings like this with my sister for my own niece's PPTs. So they're in there. So she goes, I went and sat next to the parent and chatted with them. Kind of that relational piece, asking questions, how are things going, you know, ask some specific questions about the family that she knew. Again, that relationship piece. And then, you know, they went into the meeting, and she was a support during the meeting. But the key was at the end of the meeting, when it ended, again, parents leaving, staff is staying in the room. She walked out with the parent and then had that closing conversation.
Oh, that's a good one.
So really making sure that that parent felt seen and heard, and also knew that they had someone that was there as a support as well. And that was really important, because it had kind of been, a nice word, a little bit of contentious between the school and that family, and that support was really important. But I also really liked the fact that she recognized what she did, and she was like, she wanted to come back and say to Cynthia, guess what I did? You know, this is how it went, because she knew, and she's really good at this, but she also was cognizant of how she was doing it and what it looked like. So there's that piece with families, but I also think it's important when we look at, for me, with my team, right, and my interactions with the team. So when we were doing it, the 4 of us, so again, small team, we were having just that core team meeting, and everybody was pretty stressed. Okay, it's been a tough fall for us. I'm a community mentor liaison for the district as well. We've had a lot of homeless families, a lot of intense family situations that we've all been working on. So when I did our October meeting, it was probably mid-October. I went to it was Trader Joe's, picked up 4 little pumpkins. And while we did the meeting, we actually decorated our pumpkins. And it was that calming piece, because it was also like, okay, you're doing something for us. We still had our meeting, but it was like, how are we together as our own little family, right? And that's how I also see it. We are a team. And, you know, next week we will do just the 4 of us, our December meeting, and I'll get lunch if it's just the 4 of us. But we still do our meetings, but it's also about how are we connecting with one another. That's really important to me too. So thinking about one of the things I've been talking to them about as a team is how are we finding joy in the moments, because we've got to take care of ourselves to work with our families as well. So that's, you know, how are we centering joy, and finding joy in moments is another thing that I'm really trying to help us focus on too, because it is hard work, right? And we are enmeshed in a lot of situations, but for us to take care of others, we've also got to take care of ourselves. So as a leader, I'm trying to recognize that and watch what's going on with my team too, so that we can do our best jobs with our families.
Thank you, Cynthia. That's a great example. And we do have to care for ourselves and pay attention to our relationships with our colleagues, because we're the team that makes the school work. And Maria, tell me about some of the operating principles and how they might be finding their way into your practice and your school district.
Well, thank you. The first thing we do is we activate well-being anytime we have a committee meeting that I chair. So I'm going to bring this chair up and just demonstrate. Sorry to those filming. So every committee meeting that I chair, I bring flowers, and I set them at the table, and I bring this little sign that reads Activate Wellbeing, and I bring this little crocheted support tomato, and you'd be surprised at how this can create a little comfort.
Yeah.
When it's heaved through the air at you, when it's your turn to share in the Activate Wellbeing activity. But it reads, inspirational tomatoes, don't wait for opportunities, create them. And on this little tie here, it reads, every day is a new start. And I thought that was a serendipitous message because being one of 9 Board of Education commissioners, we are a bit of a fractured board, and I know that this is not uncommon throughout boards. Unfortunately, I spent 30 years, I've nearly 30 years in education as a teacher, school principal, and school superintendent, and I can tell you that that is not always welcome at the table when you're a Board of Education commissioner. Not everybody wants somebody with that experience all up in education's business when you're an elected official, and I understand that. And so I thought that it was really important that we lighten the mood in some of our meetings so that we can just all be there as people first. So on every agenda for the School Family Community Partnerships Committee, the very first thing after the Pledge of Allegiance is Activate Wellbeing. And that is on the agenda intentionally so we see that we become people first, we're forward facing, we're connecting as people, we're putting titles and experience and everything else behind us. And we're just sitting with our little support tomato. And I invite everyone to participate in this activity, the Activate Wellbeing activity. It's not a requirement. There are usually 3 to 4 commissioners who are on the committee, but then there are people who are school district members. I actually see a few in the room. And it's just an invitation to participate. It might be, what is your favorite song? What was your first car? These are a few examples of the things that we did. First car was fun, and there's some funny stories about the first car, but we get to sit next to one another as people and connect there first, which is the most important and fundamental way. You check all your baggage behind you, and you just sit with a soul brother or sister, and you activate each other's well-being. And I can tell you, as I was thinking about that question earlier, there was a really beautiful moment where there was a school district leader who recalled his favorite song, and it was a song that he danced with his mom at his wedding, and it brought tears to my eyes thinking about it outside of that, even being in that room, because it brings humanity back to who we are. It allows us to do transactional things relationally. And so we activate well-being, and we have flowers, and we toss around this little crocheted tomato, and then there's prizes. But we always start there, and it makes the hard conversations that might follow a lot easier because you've already connected with people in the most authentic and organic way, really caring about who they are and their experiences. You can always circle back to those beautiful moments. And when you're feeling some kind of way about somebody, maybe something they said to you, capture that moment, that dance, watching that person remember his mom and how beautiful that was. And then you just put yourself and you look at that person knowing that that is you in front of them. So we start there, we affirm, and it's made the committees, I think, and from the feedback that I've received, a lot more connected. And there was another commissioner who actually volunteered herself to lead the activity to activate well-being, which was really amazing, because then that's about other people engaging with it in a way that's meaningful to that person. When I share out at the full board meetings, I always share the activity where we activate well-being, and I give a little quick summary of why we activate well-being and what it's meant to do, what it's meant to engender, and I think that it's been helpful in having some of the more difficult conversations.
Wow, thank you. Willimantic, that was the high school. I think I totally forgot.
If you're here
So,
today.
we could go on for hours, but we are time limited, and we wanted to give you all time to ask questions or make comments. If you have any questions of Cynthia or Maria or me or George, or just want to make a comment, now's your time. Oh, there we go.
I really appreciate you saying that activate the well-being. Usually we say it's icebreakers at the beginning of the meeting because it tends to bring that humanity piece to connect with individuals, and we tend to forget to not do that and just go immediately into like a meeting. I think one of the things that I'm going to take away is that we can start building that out in the schools, right? With our leaders in the building, everybody that are in that. I love what sometimes it's natural, but sometimes we got to be able to coach them. And, sometimes individuals have, certain challenges in connecting. And I'm a social worker by education. I always feel like the reason they have a sense of, like, the challenges for them is because they have something personal going. And obviously we don't want to go into that personal, but just actually humanity needs to be able to connect with their parents and be able to understand where they're at.
Wonderful, thank you. We do just tend to forget, don't we? And it's so important always to just bear that in mind.
There's someone here,
And
and
who's
there's
here?
one here, maybe, they may have
Oh.
reconsidered, there's one still with a hand up. And
Okay, but I spotted you.
Me?
Yes, you.
Okay, so, and thank you, because this was lovely. I love humanity and I love learning about people, so it makes it fun, so thank you. But my question, I guess it's a question, is, that the saying, how to teach an old dog new tricks, right?
Right.
So, I mean, for
Arf, arf.
somebody, like, you could see your staff, you could see your employees, you could feel them, you know that, but then you get that one or two that are like, this is not happening. And
Right.
I guess when developing and modeling, which is easy to do, is being able to still recognize when the other person is doing the best that they can.
Well, there you go. She
threw me off.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting to get the
You were on a roll.
Got the mic now.
I'm a loud talker, so I was just
Yeah,
accepting.
no, it's okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Melissa, for,
Yeah. So I just, when in thinking about the old dog new tricks, how do you do it, like, and be as successful as possible?
So, first you stop worrying about the old dogs, because that's how they keep control.
Thank you.
So that's the first change. And then when the old dogs know they're not in charge, sooner or later they either come or they leave. I've seen it a million times. So, but what the old dogs want to know is that you will love them still when they do the new tricks. And I only know this personally because my daughters come back to work with us all, and my two daughters got together a couple years ago. I got an early start, so they're in their 50s. And they sat me down and said, we think now we can tell you a few things that happened when we were teenagers you just weren't ready for. Okay? That's relational. No guarantee. So if people in our society and system have gotten too comfortable with old tricks that don't work.
Right.
So you can do this honestly and forthright, and you can respect them in these conversations. The old dogs will come to these conversations, especially if you have prizes. And they get to talk. But everybody gets to talk in these processes. There's a new trick. So all of what you're hearing and how it works hits that. It could go on, but that's one of the things we kind of cover in depth because you've got exactly the right questions. Nothing wrong with the question. It's how we move it into relational and out of transactional. And if anyone's living in the old transactional world, it's dangerous and destructive to us all and our thriving. So,
Maria has something she wants to add.
yeah.
That's an excellent question, and I feel like it was something that I was very sensitive in observation, and that's why I, when engaging in this, always invite.
Always
so it's the
invite.
invitation.
That's very good.
Yeah, it's that idea that for those who might not be there yet, or are just kind of observing the vibe, like,
That's
ooh,
so good.
it's just the invitation. I'd like to invite anybody who would love, to answer this question. And, it's a little bit contagious, again, when you're just being silly about it and we're, kind of randomly throwing the support tomato around and, we're inviting. And what I've found is for those who are already at a comfort level to embrace this, they want to be a part of it, so then you're starting to partner with people in the district who are feeling this vibe. And we have our student representatives now that we want to bring to the table. And so we start to, you see that it starts to permeate throughout the district. And those people who are observing and not sure how they fit in this approach start to get a little more comfortable.
That's really
And
good.
now they want to engage in ways, maybe not full out there yet, but little by little, and that's what I've seen.
It has to be invitational, otherwise you're repeating the wrong system we're already in. This will be good for you. Oh, really?
Cynthia has
Invitational is the
something here.
key principle, because that's equity for everyone, and making sure that everyone knows it's their choice that makes us better and activates the relationship. We need each other. That's really good to emphasize. That's
Very
our
good.
key principle.
So,
And Cynthia
when I
has a
think
point.
of like attendance, okay, and I have some people whose approach to attendance isn't the same as mine. What we actually have done is, rather than say that one individual having a one-to-one with the family, we've been doing team meetings, and if there's 3 adults and it's 2 who have the same, say, approach to it with one, it kind of models and it kind of couches and it kind of, they're definitely understanding more about what we're looking for and seeing that it's the way we're doing things, and even though begrudgingly sometimes, they're getting the message that that's not the approach that we're taking to things too. So I think the more, it's kind of one of those, the more that people that you can rally that have the same approach, it kind of can
Strengthen numbers.
strengthen up, basically, that other negative voice doesn't become as loud.
It just doesn't.
Right.
Because it's not the party that everybody else has had.
That's right. Everybody wants to join the party. Yes.
I'm a big Ann Henderson fan. But I'm wondering, we know systemically from all the research that there is a lack of professional development around family engagement, and I wonder how close are we in Connecticut and nationally to making this part of teacher preparation programs?
I'm so glad you asked that. How many people think that's important?
Well, you got all the
How many of you had a good course when you were training to become an educator on how to work with families? Yeah, barely anybody. So well, I think we're on the cusp of something in Connecticut on this, but the NAFSCE, the National Association for Family, School, and Community Engagement, one of the first things we set out to do 10 years ago when we were founded was to work on getting much better professional development and teacher preparation, and in collaboration with a huge number of local school districts, state education agencies, and higher education institutions of all kinds around the country. NAFSCE convened a sort of consortium of people to work on this, and have come up with the core competencies. That was kind of not what was there. And for years, I was kind of pounding on the door of AACTE and CAPE and all the alphabet soup groups in Washington about, come on, you need to be adding this into the national standards and so on. And they'd say, yeah, we do. But they didn't know what to do or how to do it. And somebody had to take it on. So NAFSCI did that. And I believe, Judy, dare I mention, that we might be on the verge of a project in Connecticut, right here, with your higher ed community to infuse these core competencies across the curriculum and also into professional development. So stay tuned, and thank you for asking that question.
That's great.
Is there one more?
There was one in the back. One
There we
here.
go.
We're getting more questions. There's more coffee. You didn't need to go anywhere, did you?
So, second operating principle, I'm just curious and I would like to see or hear an example of how do we ensure that everyone is seen, heard, understood. Like, what does that look like when you guys, talk about that?
That's a good one.
Well, it's a very good one. Either one of you?
How
Well,
do
that's
you
seen,
know?
heard, understood,
Word.
and valued. How do you, of course, you have to ask people. And a huge skill here is listening. Listening and then, affirming and taking in. I have found in my case when there's somebody that's just really holding back, really, I've got the body language of the arms crossed across the chest and the glare, that I'm not winning them over, and they're not giving me anything. I schedule a lunch or a dinner with them. And I know you did that with your school superintendent, didn't you?
Yeah.
And, I've been able to solve almost all difficulties with just a nice dinner, maybe a glass of wine, and just spending the whole first part of the meal getting to know each other. But it sometimes takes that kind of investment. Cynthia.
Well, that's a
And I do think it's one family at a time, and I think that's the key is how are we building relationships with our families? Like, who are they connected to? It doesn't have to be, every family doesn't have to be connected to the same person, but does every family have someone in the school that they trust, that they have that relationship with? And I think that is really important, like looking at our families and saying, okay, if I'm the parent, I know I can go to teacher A. If I'm a parent, maybe it's the principal, maybe it's the social worker, but really thinking about, do all of our families have someone in the school that they can go to? That's what I'm looking at. Do our families feel seen and heard and trust? Because a lot of this has to do with trust. Do they trust someone in the school? And a lot of our families have reasons not to, right? So it's really like getting down to that level, and it's one family at a time, and really looking at how are we connecting and building those relationships for me.
Yeah, Maria.
And I think also when you're building the capacity of a team, or you're putting forth a new initiative, or you really want to validate and affirm the contribution that somebody made in a committee meeting, I love just acknowledging the expertise that someone brings, and just shouting it.
Yeah, shout
Saying,
out.
oh my gosh, we are so lucky to have Erica Triani and Chris Titrelli, share out on the great work that they're doing with partnerships in Bristol. And you just really give credit, you showcase the contributions that people have. And even the person with the arms crossed tight, there's something that person can be an expert in.
Yes.
There's something that person can share, and that we need to honor that. The more we do that, the arms loosen up.
Yeah.
The voice comes out. And we have found the outlet for somebody to feel valued and honored, and then we build on that. Now you've got them. Now, what you just did is you just saw in that person how we want to be viewed as humans. We want to be valued and affirmed. So we get to do for someone else what somebody hopefully has done for us. And it's really beautiful and it's reciprocal, and I think it's transformational.
Great. These guys
Oh,
are
that's
great.
wonderful. I wish we didn't have to close, but
Yeah.
I know Judy is standing over there with a mic.
She's coming.
She's about ready to take over. We have
It's
one more
happening.
slide we want to show, which is just a reflection slide.
Judy's always helped us about today, and you might just note it. You could also just, as some of you are taking the picture of it, is now go back and play with it. Because the best way we work with people is at the end, thank them for playing. You might not even have liked it, smile. And the research is still quite clear. If you smile, it always works. You've done it with your kids, your own kids. If you smile, even if you force it, it physically in us tends to move us towards the thank you, the appreciation we heard. You don't have to understand, and then don't stop. We have to stop the arrogance, because what is taught isn't what is taught. So we have to understand that we can't see our back, and there are people in our communities who could help us see it if we're willing to open up. There's where they can. So you see, this dance gets pretty good if you can stay open. Stay open, laugh, thanks for playing. This isn't a gimmick. It's the way forward in terms of everything. Judy? So try all these. Just take any one area and play with it.
Please help me thank George, Ann, Cynthia, and Lee.